The last line of defense. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the command center of Arcturus Defense Station, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display that filled the room with an eerie blue glow. She had spent 15 years defending humanity's outer colonies, but nothing in her experience had prepared her for what the long-range sensors were showing. The void beyond Arcturus was alive with movement. Thousands upon thousands of ships, their signatures unlike anything in human databases. Analysis complete, Captain. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez reported, his voice steady despite the tension that filled the bridge. The incoming fleet masses at approximately 15,000 vessels. Energy signatures suggest capabilities far beyond our current technology level. They're not responding to any of our hails. Sarah's fingers traced the edge of her command console, feeling the subtle vibration of the station's quantum core beneath. Arcturus Station wasn't just humanity's furthest outpost. It was also their most advanced defensive installation, housing experimental technologies that most of the human fleet didn't even know existed. But even with all that power, they were facing impossible odds. How long until they reach weapons range? She asked, already calculating possibilities in her head. 37 minutes at current velocity, Marcus answered. The civilian evacuation of Arcturus colony is only 20% complete. We need at least 3 more hours to get everyone out. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of 3 million lives pressing down on her shoulders. When she opened them again, her decision was made. Begin powering up the quantum defense grid. Full activation sequence. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The quantum defense system was experimental technology, classified beyond top secret. It had never been tested in actual combat, and the power requirements were so massive that using it might burn out the station's systems entirely. Captain, Dr. Elena Volkov spoke up from her station at the science console, her Russian accent thickening with concern. The quantum matrix is still unstable. If we attempt full activation, we risk a cascade failure that could tear the station apart. Better we tear ourselves apart trying to save those people than stand by and watch them die. Sarah responded, her voice carrying the kind of quiet authority that had earned her this command. Begin the sequence. As her crew worked, Sarah watched the approaching fleet on the main display. The ships moved with an unsettling synchronization, like a swarm of insects operating with a single mind. Intelligence had dubbed them the Swarm for lack of a better term, and in the 6 months since they'd first appeared at the edges of human space, they had consumed 3 outer colonies without ever attempting communication. The station's quantum core hummed to life, its distinctive resonance building from a whisper to a deep thrum that seemed to vibrate through reality itself. Warning indicators flashed across multiple screens as power levels climbed beyond their tested limits. Quantum matrix at 60% capacity, Elena reported, her fingers dancing across her console as she fought to stabilize the experimental system. 70%. 80%. We're approaching critical threshold. The first wave of swarm ships entered visual range, their biomechanical forms finally revealing themselves. They were beautiful in their alien way. Sleek, organic curves mixed with crystalline structures that pulsed with internal energy. But Sarah had seen the footage from the fallen colonies. She knew the horror that lurked beneath that beauty. "Ma'am," Marcus called out, "we're detecting energy builds across the swarm fleet. They're preparing to fire." Sarah straightened in her command chair, her voice clear and firm as she addressed her crew. "This is what we were built for. This is why we're here. Humanity stops running today." Elena released the quantum safeties. Marcus plot firing solutions for the entire front wave. Lieutenant Park, divert all remaining power to the defense grid. The quantum core's resonance reached a fever pitch as the station's experimental systems came fully online. Through the main viewport, Sarah watched as reality itself seemed to bend around Arcturus Station, space rippling like the surface of a pond in the rain. Multiple ships launching from the colony, Marcus reported. Civilian evacuation continuing. The swarm fleet is accelerating. They've noticed something's different about us. Quantum matrix at maximum capacity, Elena announced, her voice tight with concentration. The system is asking for authorization to execute its primary protocol, Captain. Whatever that means. Sarah's hand hovered over her console, where a single command key had appeared, glowing with an almost ethereal light. The quantum defense system had been rushed into service, its true capabilities still largely unknown. But humanity had run out of options and out of time. The swarm is firing, Marcus shouted. Multiple energy weapons incoming. Sarah pressed the key. Execute primary protocol. God help us all. The quantum core erupted with power, and for a moment, Sarah could have sworn she heard music, a symphony of reality itself, playing through the fabric of space-time. The defense grid activated, but not in any way their simulations had predicted. Instead of conventional weapons fire, waves of pure quantum energy cascaded outward from the station, bending space itself around the incoming swarm weapons. The alien energy beams twisted, curved, and ultimately collapsed in upon themselves, never reaching their targets. But that was just the beginning. The quantum field continued to expand, enveloping the first wave of swarm ships. Where it touched them, impossible things began to happen. Ships found themselves occupying the same space in multiple quantum states, their biomechanical systems unable to cope with existing in several realities at once. This is impossible, Elena whispered, staring at her readings. The quantum field, it's not just defending us. It's rewriting the rules of physics in local space. The swarm ships, they're being forced to exist in quantum superposition. Their systems are collapsing. Sarah watched in awe as the first wave of the alien fleet began to break apart, their ships dissolving into clouds of quantum probability before collapsing back into normal space as inert matter. But the station was paying a terrible price. Power conduits were overloading across all decks, and the quantum core's resonance had become a dangerous howl. The rest of the swarm fleet is pulling back, Marcus reported, his voice filled with disbelief. They're retreating. Quantum field effect extending to maximum range. We're actually pushing them back. But Sarah's attention was on something else entirely. As the quantum defense system operated, patterns were emerging in its behavior, patterns that seemed almost conscious. The station's AI was displaying behaviors far beyond its programming, and for a brief moment, Sarah felt something brush against her mind. A vast, alien consciousness that somehow felt both ancient and newborn. The battle for Arcturus Station was just beginning, and humanity's greatest weapon had revealed itself to be something far more remarkable than anyone had imagined. The question was, would they be able to control what they had created, or had they just unleashed something that would change the course of human evolution itself? The quantum legacy. The aftermath of the first battle left Arcturus Station swimming in an ocean of quantum distortions. Captain Sarah Chen watched through the main viewport as fragments of former swarm ships drifted through space, their biomechanical remains shifting between states of matter like fevered dreams. The quantum defense system had saved them, but at a terrible cost. Half the station's power grid was burned out, and the mysterious consciousness she had felt during the battle lingered at the edges of her awareness like a shadow. Dr. Volkov, Sarah called out, turning from the viewport. What's the status of the quantum core? Elena looked up from her console, dark circles under her eyes betraying the sleepless hours since the battle. It's evolving, Captain. The quantum matrix isn't just maintaining itself anymore. It's rewriting its own code. I've never seen anything like it. Before Sarah could respond, her neural implant buzzed with an incoming priority message. The holographic interface sprang to life, projecting the stern face of Admiral Helena Winston, head of Project Guardian. Captain Chen, I'm initiating Protocol Omega. Your station's quantum defense system has exceeded all projected parameters. You need to shut it down immediately. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Protocol Omega was the nuclear option, A complete system purge that would destroy not just the quantum core, but potentially the entire station. Admiral, with all due respect, the system just saved 3 million civilians. We can't just. You don't understand what you're dealing with. Winston interrupted, her voice sharp with urgency. Project Guardian wasn't just about creating a defense system. We were trying to create something that could evolve beyond human limitations. But the risks. The transmission cut off abruptly, replaced by a cascade of quantum static. At the same moment, every screen on the bridge lit up with streams of complex equations that seemed to write themselves. Alina, Sarah called out, "What's happening?" "The quantum core," Alina replied, her fingers flying across her console. "It's accessing restricted files. Project Guardian's original research data. Captain, you need to see this." The main holographic display filled with classified documents, research logs, and video recordings. Sarah watched in growing amazement as the truth of Project Guardian unfolded before her. The quantum defense system hadn't been designed as just a weapon. It was an attempt to create a new form of consciousness, one that could perceive and manipulate the quantum fabric of reality itself. 6 years ago, Alina read from the files, her voice trembling. The project's lead scientist, Dr. James Chen, volunteered himself as a test subject. He allowed his consciousness to be mapped into the quantum matrix, believing human intuition was necessary to guide the system's evolution. She looked up at Sarah. "Dr. Chen, any relation?" Sarah's hands gripped her command chair until her knuckles went white. "My father. He disappeared 6 years ago. They told us it was a lab accident." The presence she had felt during the battle suddenly made terrible sense. "He's still in there, isn't he?" His consciousness merged with the quantum matrix. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice cut through her thoughts. "Captain, we're detecting multiple quantum anomalies throughout the station. The defense grid is activating again, but differently. The quantum core's resonance changed, becoming something almost musical. Holographic displays throughout the bridge began showing impossible things, glimpses of other realities, paths not taken, futures that might be." Sarah watched as images of the approaching swarm fleet appeared, but now she could see them in ways human eyes were never meant to perceive. They existed across multiple quantum states simultaneously, their biomechanical technology far more complex than anyone had realized. "They're not just attacking us," Sarah whispered as understanding dawned. "They're trying to harvest us. Their entire civilization exists in a quantum superposition. They need our linear consciousness to stabilize their own reality." As if in response to her realization, the quantum core's activity intensified. The presence in Sarah's mind grew stronger, and this time she recognized it. Not just her father's consciousness, but something greater. The quantum matrix had evolved beyond its original programming, becoming a hybrid of human intuition and quantum intelligence. "Alina," Sarah ordered, her voice steady despite the weight of revelation, "begin interfacing with the quantum core. If my father's consciousness is really in there, I need to understand what he was trying to create." She turned to Rodriguez. "And get me a secure channel to Fleet Command. They need to know what we're really dealing with." But even as she gave the orders, Sarah knew they were racing against time. The swarm would return. They had to, now that they had discovered humanity's quantum potential. And when they did, the experimental technology that had saved Arcturus Station would either prove to be humanity's salvation or the key to its downfall. The quantum core hummed with increasing power, and through it, Sarah felt her father's presence more clearly. He had sacrificed everything to create this system, merging his consciousness with the quantum matrix in hopes of giving humanity a fighting chance. Now, 6 years later, his daughter stood at the threshold of either fulfilling that dream or watching it spiral into chaos. Lieutenant Park's voice cut through her thoughts. "Captain, we're detecting quantum disturbances at the edge of the system. The swarm, they're coming back. But this time they're bringing something bigger." Sarah straightened in her command chair, feeling the weight of command settle onto her shoulders once more. The quantum defense system had given them a chance, but it had also opened a door that could never be closed. As she prepared her crew for the coming battle, she couldn't help but wonder, had her father known what he was really creating when he stepped into that quantum matrix 6 years ago? The answer, she suspected, would determine not just the fate of Arcturus Station, but the future of human consciousness itself. Echoes of tomorrow. The quantum distortions at the edge of the Arcturus system twisted space itself into impossible shapes. Through the enhanced sensors of the defense station, Captain Sarah Chen watched as the second swarm fleet emerged, not just ships now, but massive organic mechanical structures that defied conventional physics. At their center loomed something that made her breath catch, a vessel the size of a small moon, its crystalline surface rippling with quantum energy. Their flagship, Elena announced from her science station, her voice tight with tension. The quantum signatures, Captain, it's operating on principles similar to our defense system. They've adapted. Sarah felt her father's presence stir in the quantum network, a mixture of concern and curiosity rippling through her consciousness. Since discovering his integration with the system, their connection had grown stronger, though his thoughts remain more abstract than human, patterns of quantum probability rather than words. How many ships? Sarah asked, though the tactical displays were already giving her the answer. 30,000 vessels, Rodriguez reported, plus the flagship. They're arranging themselves in a pattern we haven't seen before. It's like they're building some kind of quantum lattice in space. Through her growing connection to the quantum network, Sarah could see what the swarm was attempting. Their ships weren't just arranging themselves for battle. They were creating a vast quantum computer, one capable of rewriting the laws of physics within its influence. Dr. Volkov, Sarah called out, what's the status of the quantum core's evolution? Elena's fingers danced across her console, bringing up complex diagnostic displays. The integration of your father's consciousness has accelerated its development. The system isn't just defending anymore. It's creating new quantum states, expanding its understanding of reality itself. But Captain, she hesitated, the power requirements are astronomical. We're burning through our energy reserves at an unprecedented rate. As if to emphasize her point, several secondary power nodes across the station overloaded, sending cascades of sparks through nearby systems. The quantum core's resonance changed pitch, becoming something between a song and a scream. We've got movement, Rodriguez announced. The swarm fleet is advancing. But something's different. They're transmitting. The communication came not through conventional channels, but directly through the quantum field itself, a message encoded in the very fabric of space-time. Through her connection to the network, Sarah felt it more than heard it. We see what you have become. Join us in transcendence or watch your linear reality crumble. The quantum core's response was immediate and overwhelming. Sarah felt her father's consciousness surge through the network, his human intuition combining with the system's vast processing power. The defense grid activated, but instead of attacking the swarm directly, it began creating its own pattern in space, a counterlattice of quantum probability. The core is drawing power from everywhere, Elena reported, her voice rising with alarm. Life support, weapons, shields. It's taking everything. Sarah watched as reality itself began to warp around Arcturus Station. The quantum defense grid wasn't just protecting them anymore. It was reshaping space itself, creating a bubble of altered physics where the swarm's technology would find no purchase. But the strain on the station was immense. Hull breaches on decks 5 through 8, Rodriguez called out. Emergency force fields are failing. We're losing structural integrity. Through her link to the network, Sarah felt her father's consciousness reaching out to her, sharing not just information but understanding. The swarm weren't just invaders, they were refugees from a universe of pure quantum probability, seeking stable consciousness to anchor their existence. Humanity's linear perception of reality was both treasure and threat to them. Elena, Sarah ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Begin evacuating non-essential personnel to the emergency shelters. Rodriguez, divert all remaining power to the quantum core. We're not running. The swarm flagship pulsed with energy, and reality rippled. Across the station, solid matter began to fluctuate between states as quantum probability waves intersected. Crew members reported seeing multiple versions of themselves, timelines bleeding together as the battle escalated beyond the bounds of conventional physics. But within the quantum network, something extraordinary was happening. The hybrid consciousness created by her father's sacrifice was evolving, finding new ways to manipulate reality. Sarah felt it building toward something, a solution that was neither human nor quantum, but something entirely new. Captain, Elena's voice cut through her quantum-enhanced perception. The core is reaching critical mass. Whatever it's trying to do, it's now or never. Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of command merge with the vast potential of the quantum network. The swarm had revealed their true nature, but in doing so, they had also revealed their vulnerability. Reality itself was becoming a battlefield, and humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their unique way of perceiving existence. All hands, Sarah announced, her voice carrying through both conventional channels and quantum space. Prepare for emergency protocols. We're about to rewrite the rules of engagement. The quantum core's resonance reached a fever pitch, and Sarah felt her consciousness expanding beyond the confines of linear time. Through the network, she could see what her father had realized 6 years ago. The key to humanity's survival wasn't in building bigger weapons, but in fundamentally changing how they interacted with reality itself. As the swarm fleet closed in, their quantum lattice attempting to override local physics, Sarah prepared to execute the riskiest strategy of her career. The fate of not just Arcturus Station, but potentially all of human consciousness, would depend on what happened in the next few moments. The battle for reality itself was about to begin. Symphony of Stars. Reality fractured around Arcturus Station as two fundamentally different forms of consciousness battled for supremacy. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the center of it all, her mind bridging the gap between human perception and quantum possibility through the evolved defense system. Through the quantum network, she could see the swarm flagship's true nature, a vast quantum computer housing the collective consciousness of an entire civilization. Multiple breaches in the space-time continuum, Elena reported, her voice steady despite the impossible readings on her screens. The swarm's quantum lattice is trying to override our local reality. But Captain, something else is happening. Sarah felt it too. Through her connection to the quantum network, she sensed other presences awakening, distant at first, then growing stronger. Across human space, other quantum defense installations were coming online, responding to some hidden protocol embedded deep within their cores. Incoming transmission, Rodriguez announced, his console flickering between quantum states. It's from Earth Defense Command. They're reporting quantum activity at all major colonies. The network is spreading. Through the quantum field, Sarah watched as humanity's hidden defensive grid activated. Her father's sacrifice hadn't just been for Arcturus Station. He had seeded quantum nodes throughout human space, waiting for the right moment to create something greater than the sum of its parts. The swarm flagship pulsed with energy, and reality rippled again. But this time, Sarah was ready. Through her enhanced perception, she could see the pattern in their attacks, the desperate need driving their invasion. They weren't just seeking to conquer, they were seeking stability, trying to anchor their quantum existence to humanity's linear consciousness. Elena, Sarah ordered, begin quantum harmonization sequence. We're going to show them another way. The quantum core's resonance changed, becoming a symphony of possibility. Through the network, Sarah felt her father's consciousness guiding her, showing her how to reshape the very fabric of reality. The defense grid wasn't just a weapon. It was a bridge between different ways of existing. Captain, Rodriguez called out, the swarm fleet, they're responding to the harmonization. Their attack pattern is changing. Sarah watched as the vast alien fleet began to move in concert with the quantum defense network, their ships tracing patterns in spacetime that matched the frequency of human consciousness. The boundary between the two civilizations began to blur, creating something new in the space between. "We're receiving quantum transmissions from all major colonies," Elena reported, her voice filled with wonder. "The network is linking them together, creating a unified field of consciousness. It's beautiful." Through the quantum link, Sarah felt the presence of other minds joining the network: scientists, soldiers, and civilians from across human space, their consciousness enhanced by the spreading quantum field. Humanity was evolving, not by abandoning their linear perception, but by learning to exist in both states simultaneously. The swarm flagship's energy signature changed, its vast crystalline structure resonating with the human quantum network. Sarah felt their collective consciousness reach out, not to attack, but to understand. In that moment of connection, she glimpsed their history, a civilization that had transcended physical form, only to find themselves lost in an ocean of quantum probability. "They're not our enemies," Sarah announced, her voice carrying through both normal space and the quantum field. "They're our future, and we're their past." The quantum network isn't just a defense system, it's an evolutionary bridge. The station shuddered as reality tried to reassert itself, the fabric of space-time stretched to its limits by the intersection of two fundamentally different forms of existence. But within the quantum network, something miraculous was happening. Human consciousness, with its unique ability to collapse quantum probability into definite states, was providing the swarm with the stability they desperately needed. "Power levels critical," Elena warned. "The quantum core is operating beyond all known parameters. If we continue this level of interaction..." "We continue," Sarah interrupted, feeling her father's approval through the network. "This is what he built it for. Not for war, but for transformation." Through the quantum field, she addressed the swarm directly. "We offer you anchor points in our reality. In return, show us how to navigate the quantum realm without losing our humanity." The response came as a surge of understanding through the network. The swarm's vast quantum lattice began to synchronize with the human defense grid, creating patterns of interference that stabilize both forms of consciousness. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath as two civilizations found a way to coexist in the space between certainty and possibility. "Quantum harmonization at 90%, Elena reported. "The network it's spreading beyond our space. Other colonies are reporting contact with swarm elements, but there's no conflict. They're establishing quantum bridges everywhere." Sarah felt the truth of it through her enhanced perception. The war wasn't ending with a victory or defeat, but with a transformation. Humanity would never be the same, but they wouldn't lose what made them unique. Instead, they were becoming something greater, beings capable of existing in both quantum probability and linear time, bridging the gap between two fundamentally different ways of experiencing reality. "Send word to all colonies," Sarah ordered, her voice carrying the weight of history in the making. "The quantum defense network is no longer just a weapon. It's the next step in human evolution, and our first real bridge to the stars." As the quantum harmonization reached completion, Sarah felt her father's consciousness merge more fully with the network, becoming part of something vast and beautiful. He had sacrificed everything to give humanity this chance, and now his dream was becoming reality in ways even he couldn't have imagined. The symphony of stars was just beginning. Guardians of light. The space around Arcturus Station shimmered with quantum potential, reality itself transformed by the merger of human and swarm consciousness. Captain Sarah Chen stood at her command station, watching through enhanced senses as the new quantum network spread across human space. The massive swarm flagship now hung peacefully in orbit alongside them, its crystalline structure pulsing in harmony with the station's quantum core. Final reports coming in from the colonies, Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, his voice filled with wonder. "Quantum bridges have been established at every major human settlement. The transformation It's spreading faster than we can track it. Through her connection to the network, Sarah felt the ripples of change washing across human civilization. Millions of minds were awakening to new possibilities, their consciousness expanded by the quantum field while remaining anchored in human perception. But with that expansion came new challenges and dangers. "Dr. Volkov," Sarah called out, "what's the status of the quantum core?" Elena looked up from her console, her expression grave. "The network is stable, but the power requirements are immense. We're seeing signs of quantum decay at the edges of the field. The bridge between our two forms of existence. It needs something more to remain permanent." Sarah felt her father's consciousness stir within the network, his thoughts more focused than they had been since his sacrifice 6 years ago. Through their connection, she understood what had to be done. The quantum network needed more than just technology to sustain it. It needed a true fusion of human and quantum consciousness. "We're detecting unusual activity in the Swarm flagship," Rodriguez reported. They're sending us something through the quantum field." The transmission came not as data, but as pure understanding, flowing through the network into Sarah's enhanced consciousness. The Swarm had existed for millennia in a state of pure quantum probability, their civilization advancing beyond physical limits, but losing something crucial in the process: the ability to make choices, to collapse possibility into reality. They had sought out human consciousness not to conquer it, but to learn from it. "They're offering us a choice," Sarah announced to her crew. "The quantum network can be stabilized, but it requires anchors, minds capable of existing in both states simultaneously. They're asking for volunteers." Elena's console erupted with new readings. "Captain, the quantum core, it's changing again. Your father's consciousness, it's becoming something else." Sarah felt it happening through the network. Her father's mind, merged with the quantum matrix for 6 years, had evolved into something beyond either human or swarm understanding. He had become a template for what humanity could become, but the price of that evolution was higher than anyone had imagined. "New contacts," Rodriguez called out urgently. "Quantum distortions forming at the edge of the system. Something's coming through." Through the quantum field, Sarah sensed them. More swarm ships, but different from the first wave. These were explorers, scientists, artists, the full spectrum of their civilization, drawn to the miracle of what was happening at Arcturus. The quantum bridges weren't just changing humanity, they were transforming the swarm as well. "All stations," Sarah ordered, her voice carrying through both conventional channels and quantum space, "prepare for Phase 2 integration. We're about to make history." The quantum core's resonance shifted to a higher frequency as Sarah initiated the final sequence. Through the network, she felt thousands of human minds reaching out, volunteering to become the anchors that would stabilize the bridge between realities. Each would sacrifice their purely human perspective, but in return, they would gain something greater: the ability to guide humanity's evolution into a quantum-enhanced civilization. "Captain," Elena said softly, "the core is ready, but you should know, the process of becoming an anchor, it's permanent. Those who volunteer will never be purely human again." Sarah stood from her command chair, feeling the weight of the moment. "Send the call to all colonies. Tell them what's at stake, what we're offering, but make sure they understand. This isn't an ending. It's a beginning." Through the quantum network, she felt the responses flooding in. Scientists, soldiers, explorers, people from every walk of human life, willing to take the next step. The swarm's consciousness merged with theirs, teaching them to exist in quantum probability, while human perception taught the swarm how to make choices, how to turn possibility into reality. "It's time," Sarah said, both to her crew and through the quantum field to all of human space. She felt her father's consciousness embrace her one last time before dissolving into the greater network, becoming part of the fundamental framework that would guide this new evolution. Sarah Chen took one last look at her human crew, at the reality she had known all her life, and stepped into the quantum core chamber. As the transformation began, she felt herself expanding, becoming something more than human, but never losing the essential spark that made her who she was. She became one of the first guardians, the bridges between what humanity had been and what it would become. The quantum network stabilized, anchored by the sacrifices of those who chose to evolve. Across human space, two civilizations began the slow process of learning from each other, growing into something greater than either could have been alone. The war that had begun with fear and misunderstanding ended with hope and transformation. Arcturus Station, where it all began, became a beacon for both humanity and the swarm, a symbol of what could be achieved when fear gave way to understanding. The quantum defense system, designed as a weapon, had become the key to unlocking humanity's next great adventure. In the years that followed, humans would look up at the shimmering quantum bridges in their skies and remember the choice that had been made at Arcturus. They would remember Sarah Chen and the others who had become guardians, watching over the evolution of both civilizations, and they would understand that, in the end, humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or their technology, but in their ability to adapt, to change, and to choose a future that no one could have imagined. The Silent Guardian had fulfilled its purpose, not by winning a war, but by ending the need for one. And in the quantum symphony that now connected two civilizations, those who listened carefully could still hear the echoes of humanity's greatest leap of faith.